What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the next episode of the Justice Revolution. I am your host, James the Patriot. I have with me, as always, my ever faithful co-host, my lady partners in crime, no pun intended, Erica and Justice. Say hello, ladies.
Hey, guys.
Hey, guys.
All right. How's the week been? How's it been going?
I don't even know what day it is most days. Okay. One day just kind of blurs into the next day. And all the time there's still a baby hanging off of me. I only know it's certain days because like my Aunt Marcia, she'll send me something that says like Happy Thursday. And I'm like, oh, it's Thursday. Okay.
I remember those days.
I don't know.
Oh, I know.
I like those days, actually. Those were nice days.
Yeah, well, that's what I say. I am jealous. I was pulling up my my photo roll on my camera, and there was some videos of when my twins, who are now 8, when they were 18 months old and just playing, rolling around the floor. I'm just like, oh gosh, I miss those days. Really do.
It's really precious. Yeah.
Yeah. Now they're just like 8-year-olds, and they're just beating the crap out of each other, and it's fun and to a point until when they start to hurt each other. Like, okay, guys, now we got to like dial it back a notch. But anyway, so a lot has happened since our last episode. We had what I thought was a great episode. Erica went through the way she helped her friend with their tax situation. I went in and refiled all of my taxes for the last 3 years using the same approach. I did an amended return for 2021, I believe. I can't even remember what year we're in. Went through all that process, and I got those mailed off the other day. So now it's just to sit and wait. We'll see what happens. So my hope is that it's pretty quick like it was for Erica. So but yeah, finally got the document posted into the affidavits chat. So I apologize. I wanted to make sure it was done correctly. So I posted it in the affidavits chat. That's there, the one that Erica put together for her friend. And then, like we said, you guys, please reach out if you have questions. It's like, hey, I want to make sure that this is being done correctly, or if you were to do this, how would you do it? Again, I want to be very clear. We're not offering legal advice or tax advice. If you feel like you need that, go find somebody who you think can give it to you. We're just saying that if this is us, this is what we would do, then you're welcome to follow it, or you're welcome to not. So I think part of what spurred the topic for today, because we've been following the chat and the Affidavits 101 group closely. I sent a text to Erica and Justice the other day, and I said, hey guys, what do you think we should do a show on? And Erica was like, spot on. We need to talk about the difference between people and person. So I want to turn it over to Erica for a minute and just give us your thoughts as to why you think this is an important topic. And then I'm looking at the comments right now, and it's like everybody's like, this is perfect. The timing is perfect for this. So I was like, wow. So why do you think this is an important topic that we discussed today, Erica?
Well, for me and my personal journey, because when I got my hook in the mouth moment, that's what I call it, because those of us who are learning the law, we're not just doing it for fun, right? We started this journey because we got screwed somehow. And we realized it's not supposed to be this way. What the heck is going on? And so the hook in the mouth moment for me was getting fired from the hospital that I worked at for 20 years. Mm-hmm. And the only thing I knew at the time about law was that there are these guys called lawyers, and that I looked up a bunch of lawsuits, and they had a bunch of things like statutes and, codes. And I'm like, how am I going to learn all this stuff? And like, I just felt like it just isn't right that they should have been able to rob me of my livelihood. Like, how do I have to find a statute that goes along with that? I'm not a lawyer. I don't have time to study all this stuff. And then I found all these other law groups that are focusing on essentially training you to become an amateur lawyer. And I'm just like, this is, and then I started, as time went on, I started seeing people are getting their cases dismissed, motion dismissed. It's like no one's getting heard. And then I was like, okay, there's got to be something more. And then I just started this progression. I got away from the statutory law and realized, oh my gosh, there's this thing called common law. And then I was like, oh my gosh, there's this thing called spiritual law. And oh my gosh, there's this thing, like, it just keeps getting more and more. And there've been a couple of different, rabbit holes that we've all been sucked down that ended up not being true, but that sounded like it could be true. And I don't know. What I started realizing was that we need to stop listening to gurus. We need to stop just watching videos. We need to read documents. We need to just read the words. That's what I was doing with the tax code, right? I read the code and I looked up the definitions in the back part. Like I said, that's how tricky those statutes are, because they'll say, like, your house is blue, and then the definition for blue in the definition is pink, yellow, red, and green, not blue. Like, and so if you don't read it, then you don't really know what it's saying. So that's my take on it. When I looked at all these definitions for stuff, I'm like, surely this can't apply to me, that this I'm supposed to do this. And then you look up the definition of the words that they're using in the code, they mean something totally different. And so I think that's the trickery. And if we're going to be successful in our endeavors, we can't be tricked. We can't be fooled. So that's my take on it.
No, I think you're spot on. And before I jump in on and add my 2 cents, Justice, is there anything you want to add to what Erica just said?
Well, for me, it's the spiritual part. It's, like we were talking about in the last episode, it doesn't feel right. And I think people don't give themselves enough credit to listen to the Holy Spirit or your intuition, whatever that is inside you that tells you that something's not right. So as we started searching, oh my gosh, the legal, right, James? Like, help me. I can't write this. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm talking about when you were helping me. And then you start to read stuff about common law and it makes sense to your spirit and your soul. This is the way it's supposed to be. I'm a human being, not an entity. So exactly that is, following even the guru rabbit holes that sound great. There's always something in there for me that was like, I don't know, something's not. So, continue on, but just listen closer to your soul and your spirit. So pay attention to the red flags. That's what, it's just this time in the world right now is designed to be deceptive and spread misinformation so vast and wide that we don't know what to believe is true. So you have to go within. So,
which, by the way, just be careful in which state you are in when you decide to spread misinformation about certain topics, because apparently now the communist dictator, the governor of California has just declared that if you spread misinformation about certain topics surrounding places where people go and put their choice for certain people, that you can be prosecuted and thrown in jail. So the right to free speech be damned. The right to freedom of conscience be damned. But why I think this is so important today, and this is why it's like, at first when Erica posted back to our text group, I was like, people versus prison. Well, don't we already know that? But then as I started thinking about it more, I was like, this is actually a really good topic. And then someone, and I'm going to give them the credit where credit is due. Let me see. Someone posted in the affidavits group last night, yesterday afternoon, an individual by the name of Brett. If you're on, thank you. If not, and you're listening, thank you for posting these documents, because we're going to go over some of these documents here that are some treatises on the subject, on the differences between people and persons, citizens and residents, all of these different terms that we've heard, right? And these were authored by Dave Champion. Now, I really love Dave Champion, and Eric and I were talking about this prior to going live. When you look at Dave Champion, just on the surface, he looks like he belongs in a biker gang. I mean, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like he's got tattoos all over the place. He looks like he's a pretty rough guy. But when you listen to him and you hear him talk, you're like, oh my gosh. This guy could school even the best legal scholars out there. I'm a big fan. I'm a big champion of Dave Champion because I actually have his book sitting over here on the floor. It's the let's see, Shattering the Income Tax Myths. Yep. Which is, I mean, again, that plays right along into what our discussion was last week. Nothing that we said last week and nothing that he writes in his book is anything different than what we talked about last week. So I want to give a shout out to Brett. Thank you for posting his information wherever you found it. God bless you, because it's eye-opening. And in order for us to really understand and have a deep appreciation for, is there a difference between people and persons? Is there a difference between citizens and non-citizens, federal citizens, citizens of the United States, citizens of a state? Is there a difference between all of that? And the reality is, unfortunately, yes, there is, especially when it comes to matters of the law. Now, in everyday terms, right? Just talking amongst friends, or if you're traveling abroad and you say, oh, I'm an American citizen. I'm a United States citizen, right? I'm an American. We are all proud to say that. I mean, I defy you to go talk to any veteran of any war and say, hey, do you think you're a citizen of the United States? You're damn right I'm a citizen of the United States. They're proud of that, and they fought for this. They bled for it, and their brothers and sisters, some of them unfortunately died for it. So it's important for us to understand, why do these terms matter? Why are they different? And if we're taking these issues before a court of law, why is it that when we believe one thing, the court is doing something completely different? Because that's not happened to any of us, right?
Yeah.
Oh, again, Eric, this is what I love. We just need to find a way to get Erica's facial expressions converted into audio terms. So those who are listening, I mean, her eye roll was better than my 14-year-old eye roll. It was fantastic. So
It comes from the heart.
it comes from the heart. I love it. All right. So in order to really understand the foundation between these, what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our time machine, and we're going to go back in time. We're going to go back to the mid 1700s, prior to the founding of our nation. So Erica's now got a 2-month-old baby boy. When he gets to be about 18 months old or so, I'm sure he's going to want to start watching the little cartoons. Little Einsteins is the one that comes to mind. You guys ever see that show, The Little Einsteins, where they jump in their famous rocket ship and they go back in time? Yeah.
Don't make me sing the song, James.
I'm not going to. Okay. We're going to jump back in time, and we're going to have an understanding of why the specific words were chosen in not only the Declaration of Independence, but also in the Constitution, and then why specific words were chosen in specific states' constitutions. Okay. Because there really is a difference to all of this. So before I do that, anything else we want to touch on before we get jumping into this, ladies?
I don't think so, except for we just learned we were controlled opposition. So
Yeah.
all of you out there.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Maybe we should talk about that. Erica, do you want to touch on that real quick? How we have now officially, y'all, our show is now been, christened, blessed, whatever the case may be, with controlled opposition. This is fantastic. I deleted the comment, but you can paraphrase it, Erica.
I'm just a mom. I live in the woods. I'm unaffiliated, so just for the record. Oh, but I do have something to share at the end when we get done with this show. I do have a specific request for everybody.
Okay.
Of something that I'm working on, and I could really use the help from people. So,
okay, we can do that. All right, so let's jump in our time machine and let's go back to May and June of 1776. Okay, May and June of 1776. What was going on at that time, ladies? Any guesses?
Well, what the history
the revolution.
Okay.
All right. What about history?
So you said the revolution, Erica?
Yeah.
Almost, not quite, but almost. What else was going on in that era of American history in April, May, and June of the year 1776?
Is that the Boston Tea Party? I don't
Yeah,
know.
that was a couple years beforehand.
Oh,
but
okay.
yes.
Yeah. I don't know.
So there was the not the Constitution, excuse me. There was a congressional meeting. So the representatives of the 13 colonies at the time, they all met in Philadelphia, and they came up with the what they ultimately coined as the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. Okay. What's interesting is when you look at what I find is here, I'm going to share my screen again. For those of you who are watching, you can follow along this way. For those who are not, I'm going to read this, but I am here on archives.gov. If I'm controlled opposition, well, then why in the world would I send you to archives.gov? But whatever. What do I know? I'm going to be prosecuted for piracy on the high seas at some point. That's a little inside joke there. Okay. So in Congress, July 14th, 1776, the unanimous, lowercase, uppercase, declaration of the 13 lowercase united uppercase states of America. Okay. Real quick. Where did the name America come from? Do you guys know?
There's a couple of different theories on this that I've seen on the internet, but I don't know which is the correct one.
Yeah, I had heard like Amerigo Vespucci, the
Italian explorer. Yeah.
Right.
That's in the history book version, right?
Yeah, that's the history book version, right? But we all know that there were people living here long before Europeans ever discovered this land. There's actually a really good movie out there that was put together by Mel Gibson, Apocalypto. It's a good one. It kind of shows a little bit of the history of what the Native Americans, the peoples of America, both North, South, and Central America, what they were going through before they were discovered, invaded, whatever you want to call it, right? Okay, but yeah. So America was a term of a land, and ultimately it was. You're right. Amerigo Vespucci was the Italian explorer who claimed to have found the New World. So they gave the name of the New World America after him. Okay, whether that's true or not, I don't know. I'm just saying that's where it ultimately came from. So when these men were in Congress on July the 4th, 1776, where they ultimately signed their names to this Declaration of Independence, what I find is interesting is when you look at the United States of America today, do you ever see the U in United States lowercase, or is it usually uppercase?
It's always uppercase.
And does that mean anything?
Yes.
Why does it mean something, Erica? What does that denote?
One's an adjective, and one is like a proper name.
A noun, right?
Yeah.
A noun. So what do we all learn a noun is from school? A person, place, or thing?
Place or thing.
So the lowercase is an adjective, right? So it's stating the lowercase means we are all united, as in the adjective of the word, but the uppercase is the thing. That's important. Remember that as we move on. Okay. We all know about the Declaration. I'm not going to read that, but what I am going to read is a couple of things here, and this is why this is so important to our discussion today. We hold these truths to be self-evident that, and I'm going to highlight this, all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Again, rights is capitalized. Why would that be capitalized? Because that's denoting things. And that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Okay, I'm just going to stop right there. Why do you guys think I highlighted all men? What's the importance of that? Now, remember, we're not talking in September the 20th, 2024. We're talking July the 4th, 1776. What did all men mean on July the 4th, 1776?
All colors, all natives,
All
I don't know,
people, all people, all persons.
slaves.
Did it? Did it though? Again, I'm not talking about, let's just make this easy. I'm not talking about July the 4th, 2024. I'm talking July the 4th, 1776. And those of you who are following along live, if you think you know, go ahead and type it in the chat. We'll bring it in.
Someone said,
what did the terms all men? Okay, armed resistance, you are close. Armed resistance says all men meant non-corporations. You are very, very close. Okay, you guys, you know what I'm getting at here? Remember,
Humans. I don't know.
Dan Tutolo, give that man a gold star. There's also one more thing, Dan. There's one more thing that we're missing. And please, this is my, okay. All right, now we got the, okay, hold on one second. Don't put any comments up on the screen, Justice or Erica, because I'm going to.
okay.
I want to make a caveat here. Please know and understand. I'm going to say it again. Please know and understand. What we're talking about today has nothing to do with racism whatsoever. Zip, zero, zilch. What we are talking about today is what the words meant as they were written at the time they were written under the law at the time. Okay? Are we clear?
Clear.
We clear?
Total.
So when you see in July the 4th, 1776, the term all men, Leslie Liberty hit it right on the head. All white men, not women.
I almost said all white people.
All white men. You guys have to remember.
So the Freemasons.
Sort of. You have to remember the colonials, the people of the colonies came from a monarchy system, one in which the only people who could own land were lords and who were white men.
Right.
That's it. They were only allowed to own, and they had to be sanctioned or given the opportunity to do that by the king himself. So that's what was happening at the time. Now, again, this is what I'm going through here. This is the Declaration of the Independence that was ultimately signed. This is not the Declaration of Independence that certain individuals wanted to be put in front of the king. Because when you look at Thomas Jefferson's first draft, and I've talked about this in previous episodes, he says specifically that all men are created equal, and in his term, he means everyone, man, women, white, black, Native American, doesn't matter. That's what Thomas Jefferson wanted. And in fact, this line right here, and the pursuit of happiness, it used to say life, liberty, and property.
Mm-hmm.
But why did they change it to the pursuit of happiness?
They want the property.
Who wants the property?
The controlling oligarchs.
Sort of. Why do you think that in the original draft, Thomas Jefferson put life, liberty, and property, but ultimately changed it from life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness?
To encompass more things.
So
what would cause happiness?
You're close. You're very, very close. As you can see down here, this is the list of all of the abuses that the king made. There is one that was about 3 or 4 paragraphs long that was ultimately taken out. And that paragraph was the one where he talks about how the king has waged war against a people that did nothing to him, but did so merely because of the color of their skin. Thomas Jefferson wrote a scathing rebuke of slavery, and he wanted to abolish it from the get-go. So the reason why they didn't, and the reason why this reads "and the pursuit of happiness" and not "and property," is because Thomas Jefferson knew that if the colonials were divided right? You had the northern states, you had the southern states. The southern states were neck deep in slavery, even at that time. And they knew that if they were not united, that the king would drive a wedge between them, and ultimately the nation would fail ever before it even started. So they had to make a compromise. And the compromise was, all right, I'm going to take out the word property, because to southern landowners, and to an extent some
Slave or
northern
property.
landowners, they looked at people of color, people from African descent, whatever you want to call them, Black, Negro, whatever. Okay, again, I am not using terms in a racist sense. I'm using terms in a historical context. Please understand that. Please.
You're okay, James. Don't.
I know, but this is so important to know and understand why we are where we are today because of all of this garbage.
Yeah. So
okay?
yeah.
So Jefferson knew that if he left property in there, because certain people looked at other people as their property, they weren't looked at as human beings. In their eyes, they didn't see them as an equal. They saw them as someone who barely even deserved to breathe the air that they were breathing. As disgusting as that sounds, and how that violates every law known to man, God's laws, natural law, that's what it was. That's how it was. Okay? So that's the Declaration of Independence. That's why it was changed from "and property" to "the pursuit of happiness," because Jefferson said, listen, we're going to unite to defeat the common enemy. Then we're going to work on defeating the other enemy. Unfortunately, Jefferson never saw it to fruition because he died before it happened. But it didn't happen until almost another 100 years later. All right. Any questions on that so far?
Nope.
Okay. Let's go to the United States Constitution. All right. When was the United States Constitution ratified? Do you guys know?
I don't know.
It was ratified. What's that?
I should know, but I don't know.
We talked about this in our last episode when we mentioned that September was a fantastic month for a number of reasons, not just because of the month I was born.
Yeah. Was it the 14th?
Close.
15th?
You're getting closer.
16th?
You're very warm.
It's the 17th.
Yeah! September 17th.
Right. I knew
1787.
that.
September 17th, 1787.
Knew that.
Armed Resistance said 1781. That was actually the Article of Confederation, I think. Again, I'm going from memory here, so if I'm wrong, chances are I am wrong. Don't fact check me and say I'm spreading misinformation, blah, 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 blah. You guys, you all have a brain in your head. You know how to look things up. Just do it. Anyway, yep. Leslie Liberty, September 17th, 1789. Brent Gray, excuse me. Okay, so.
Happy belated birthday, Leslie.
Yes, happy belated birthday.
That's a good one.
And that's why I love her name, Leslie Liberty, because she was born on September 17th. I love it. Okay, all right. So what was important, again, at the time? What did we just learn about the Declaration of Independence of what the term all men meant? It meant all white men. Okay, fast forward about another 10 years. We have thrown off the king. We just won the Revolutionary War, and now they're all meeting in Congress. This is the Constitutional Convention. There was the Articles of Confederation, which didn't do enough. And so they met again to come up with a better solution, which was the Constitutional Convention. It took 2 or 3 years before they were able to finally do something. Now, let me ask you this question. Had slavery been abolished at that point in time? No. So, did the definition of all men change between the signing of the Declaration of Independence and the ultimate ratification and signing of the Constitution?
No.
No. So when we read in the Constitution, right here, we the people of, wait a minute, is this the lowercase or is that the uppercase?
It's the uppercase.
Okay. And that's because what we're reading here on the screen has actually been changed. Okay. There's again, there's so much trickery that has gone on over the couple hundred years that we have been a nation. The original version does not say Constitution for the United States of America. It says Constitution of the lowercase United uppercase States of America. Okay. But the context of what we the people means does not change. So the men who signed the Declaration of Independence and the men who ultimately signed the Constitution and the states that ratified the Constitution, again, they were all men at the time. They were all white men at the time. So what does we the people mean? All white men at that time. Are we clear? Clear as mud? Okay. All right. Now let's move on to some other interesting things. In order to understand what the difference between people and person is, we have to understand what we did and what we are. So, Justice, if I was to ask you, are you a citizen of the United States? What would your answer be?
We've been taught to say yes.
All right. So you say we've been taught to say yes. What is your answer?
Well, I mean, I am legally.
Okay.
So, based on what we've learning as far as stepping out of that classification, that's a whole nother rabbit hole for a whole nother show, but technically, yes.
Yeah.
I have to just turn this chat off over here on.
Yeah, I noticed we got some I guess we finally graduated to that level of a show. We've got people that are trying to infiltrate. So
yeah, so I'll just give me 1 sec. So
you're all good. Dan, yes, go to archives.gov. You can find all of the unredacted original versions there. It does take some digging, but they are there. Archives.gov. He was asking the question, is there an official recognized copy of the original version of the Constitution and so on and so forth? So, okay, so Erica, are you a citizen of the United States?
What is the definition of United States?
And more importantly, what is the definition of
citizen?
Okay. Well, let's look at the Constitution. What does it say? We the people. Okay. We understand what we the people meant at that time. Now, I'm going to jump around a little bit here in the Constitution because you guys, you're going to see, and it didn't even dawn on me until we had this discussion yesterday. This is how fascinating this is. And how they hide everything right in plain sight. Okay? Let's just pick one of the first amendments, which is more commonly known as, Erica?
The right to free speech. Oh.
The Bill.
The Bill of Rights?
Thank you, the Bill of Rights.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was
the first 10 amendments. Here, I'm going to go down here. The first 10 amendments to the Constitution are more commonly known as the Bill of Rights. Okay, so let's just open up the First Amendment. Let's read that one. What does it say? Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof or abridging the freedom of the speech or of the press or of the right of what?
The people.
The people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Okay. Makes sense. Any concerns about that?
Nope.
Okay. Let's go on to the Second Amendment. What does this say? A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The what? Right of who?
The people.
Okay. The Third Amendment doesn't really apply anymore. What about the Fourth Amendment? What does this say? The right of who?
The people.
Okay. Are you seeing a theme here?
Mm-hmm.
What does the Fifth say? Oh, wait a minute. That says no person. Okay. That's a little different. All right. What does the Sixth Amendment say? In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, witnesses against him. Wait a minute, him? What about her? Or what about it in today's world? To have compulsory process and to have the assistance of counsel for, wait a minute, his defense. All right, okay. So that's the Fifth Amendment. Oh, whoops, that's the Sixth Amendment. Let me go back. So for some reason, it doesn't let me get that one. Okay, let's read the 7th Amendment. What does that one say? Well, that's interesting. The 7th Amendment, in suits at common law where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right of a trial by jury shall be preserved. Okay, so we know about that one. The 8th Amendment, no excessive bail or fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. The 9th Amendment, the enumeration in this Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by who?
The people.
Okay. The 10th, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to who?
The people.
Okay, are we seeing a common theme here?
Mm-hmm.
Those were the first 10 amendments. Those amendments stood forever. Then we had the 11th Amendment that was passed. Then we have the 12th Amendment. Have you ever read the 12th Amendment, Erica?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's long. It's interesting. Basically, what it talks about is how the House of Representatives and the president and all that stuff is elected. Okay, great. What about the 13th Amendment? Have you ever read that one?
Yeah, but I heard there was a one that existed before this one.
Okay, there was the hidden 13th Amendment. Okay.
Titles of nobility.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So let me go back here to the 11th Amendment, because this one is crucial. And let me tell you why. What did we just read was the most common theme in the first 10 amendments? What was the 2 words that was more common than anything else?
The people.
The people. And what do we know that the people means?
White men.
White men at the time.
Adult. Yeah.
Adult white men.
Do they have to be landowners too? I thought that was part of
They
it
were
too.
supposed to have been, yeah, because at the time, right? I mean, who has the most vested interest in the people that quote unquote lead the country? Landowners. So that at the time, the people who could vote, it wasn't every single man, woman, and 18-year-old child, because let's be honest, they're still children. It was landowners. Okay.
Yeah.
That's just a story for another day. Let's read the 11th Amendment. This is, I find fascinating, because when we look at the first 10, the most common theme is the people. What does this say here? The judicial power of the United States shall not be construed to extend to any suit in law or equity commenced or prosecuted against one of the United States by citizens of another state. Or wait a minute. Or by citizens or subjects of any foreign state. What the frick does that mean? Do you guys know?
No. Registered people.
Citizens of another state. What in the world does that mean?
Of the several states?
Close. Okay, I'm going to pull up a United States Supreme Court case that's really going to blow your mind. This case was decided in 1908. It has, you'll see there's a little red flag here next to it because it's been overturned on a number of things. However, the part that I'm going to read to you, which is right here at the first, has not changed, and it has not been overturned. This is why I think people, and when I say we the people, I'm talking about every man, woman, and child, no matter what your color skin is. This is why we the people have been duped. Let's read this. This was authored by, let's see, oh, it doesn't say, or it's down here. I just want to see Mr. Winkle. No, that's not it. I wanted to see who the justice was that authored this. Hold on one second. It's long. Okay. Mr. Justice Moody, it looks like. Okay. So let's go back up here to the top. This is where the most important stuff is. Basically, what this case was about was someone was complaining about the ruling in a state court. And so they took it to federal court. They took it to the United States Supreme Court. And the justice at the time who authored this is what he says. And remember the 11th Amendment, citizens of another state. He said the judicial act of the highest court of a state, which would be the Supreme Court in that state, in authoritatively construing and enforcing its laws is the act of the state. exemption from compulsory self-incrimination in the state courts is not secured by any part of the federal Constitution. Whoa! Did I just read that right?
Mm.
It gets better. There is a citizenship of the United States. Oh, there's that uppercase again. And a citizenship of the state, which are distinct from each other. And privileges and immunities, although fundamental, which do not arise out of the nature and character of the national government or are not specifically protected by the federal Constitution, are attributes of state and not of national citizenship. The first 8 amendments are restrictive only of national action. And while the 14th Amendment restrained and limited state action, it did not take up and protect citizens of the states from action by the states as to all matters enumerated in the first 8 amendments. The words due process of law as used in the 14th Amendment are intended to secure the individual from the arbitrary exercise of powers of government unrestrained by the established principles of private right and distributive justice. But that does not require that he be exempted from compulsory self-incrimination in the courts of a state that has not adopted the policy of such exemption. Okay, I'm going to stop right there. Have you guys ever wondered why each state has its own constitution?
Well, we were separate states.
What does that mean?
Everybody was created their, it's like Europe. They call it nation state. It's its own entity. And then we later on in time got put together under the federal umbrella.
So you're absolutely right, Justice. What we were and what we are, the federal Constitution guarantees to every state that wishes to be a part of the confederation of these states, part of the union, a republican form of government, right? Didn't we talk about that last week, Erica?
Yep.
Okay. So if a republican form of government, well, that means it's government of the people, by the people, for the people. So then we must establish our own state constitution. This is what has been missing. We are not prosecuting. What we're doing is we're confusing jurisdictions. We are petitioning for redress of grievances in our government under the federal Constitution, but the federal Constitution only applies to federal actions. So what happens when the state is coming after us? Well, we need to read our state's constitutions.
Mm-hmm.
We need to understand that the state constitution is also a contract, and one that state representatives are required to swear an oath to uphold and defend, and that the people, the citizens of the states, the several states, are beneficiaries of that contract for our benefit and our purpose. This was very eye-opening to me, right? It says here, exemption from compulsory self-incrimination did not form part of the law of the land prior to the separation of the colonies from the mother country, nor is it one of the fundamental rights, immunities, privileges of, there it is, the lowercase citizens of the United States, or an element of due process of law within the meaning of the federal Constitution or the 14th Amendment thereto. But I just heard, and I'm not going to name names, you guys can plug in the names because you know who they are. I've just heard people make that exact argument in the opposite. The 14th Amendment guarantees me due process of rights, due process of law, and protections of my rights.
If you live in Washington, D.C., maybe, because that's where you're a United States citizen.
Exactly. Do you guys see the problem with this and how we've been doing this wrong from the, I'm okay. I'm not a hypocrite. I'm not going to stand up here and say I haven't been doing it wrong, because I have. Mm-hmm. I have put lawsuits in front of a federal judge, and when the federal judge denied my lawsuit, I'm looking going, what in the world did I do wrong? Well, now I know.
Yep.
It's because I went to the federal judge as a citizen of my state, not as a citizen of the federal government, or vice versa, where I was petitioning as a citizen of the federal government when in reality I'm not.
Only on for tax reasons you are. When you check the little box that says you're a United States citizen, then it's okay.
Brent brings up a good question. Brent Gray. Didn't the 14th Amendment make the Bill of Rights apply to all 50 states? That is an argument that I've heard a number of liars make. Why do you think the liars would want to make that argument? Hold that thought. This is getting really good. All right, I'm going to open up, let's see. Oh, let's see, where is it? Oh, I want to go to the, let's go to this document here. Okay, I'm going to pull up a document that Dave Champion authored that Brett posted in, he posted in the Telegram chat. So let me pull this one up, share my screen. Let's go to this page here. Okay.
Has anyone ever gotten that question? Are you a citizen of Utah, Arizona, New York?
No.
I've only gotten a United States.
Never. I have traveled abroad a number of times, and not once do they ask me, what state are you a citizen of?
Mm-hmm.
They always say, are you a United States citizen? Are you a United States citizen?
Right.
I mean, I've heard others make the argument that we are not citizens under the 14th Amendment, and I'm like, I thought we were.
Mm-hmm.
But no. So this is a 12-page document. It's a fantastic read. I wish I had time to read the whole thing because it is so freaking good. All I'm going to say is there are certain things that we need to touch on, right? So Dave says here, this is Dave Champion. Again, I'm giving credit where credit is due. He states in the Constitution, not for. In the Constitution of the United States, the phrase citizen of the United States appears. Because this phrase appears within a constitution, not a statute, the meaning of the phrase is determined by the meaning intended by those who wrote and signed the Constitution. If the intended meaning is manifest, there is no power on earth, including that of a criminal in a black robe, you guys make that distinction, which can alter the meaning of the phrase. The meaning of the phrase citizen of the United States is well understood. The phrase is shorthand for the sentence, all the citizens of the 13 independent nations, called states, that are a party to this Constitution. The important element that you should understand is that the citizen of the United States spoken of in the Constitution of the United States is more properly and accurately a citizen of the state in which he or she lives.
Mm-hmm.
The phrase citizen of the United States is actually a euphemism used for convenience and brevity and not a legal title. But here's where things get convoluted, okay? We all know about things that happen, right? We move on here. Again, this is a fantastic read. I want you to read this, but I'm going to jump down to here. So we need to take careful note that the citizens of the states, the lowercase states of the Union, are the only citizens who possess all the rights, privileges, and immunities spoken of in the United States Constitution, plus whatever additional rights are secured to them by their own states' constitutions. At the end of the section, you will see federal and state court cases that clearly show that the rights of one class of citizen are thoroughly different from the rights of the other class of citizen. Does that make sense to anybody? If we are not all men and women created by God and endowed by certain unalienable rights, how is it that the courts can look at us in two separate classes?
Makes total sense because they're the way they're corrupt. It helps their agenda. It helps their control.
Yep. So here's where things get really interesting. Dave says the distinction in the class of citizenship continued without significant comment or concern until the end of the Civil War. Now, although the Civil War was not fought over slavery, despite what you were taught, the end of the Civil War nevertheless brought about the end of involuntary servitude and slavery in America.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's the 13th article of the Constitution that ended slavery. Prior to the Civil War, the southern states did not recognize blacks as persons who could become citizens of their states. In fact, it was well understood by the citizens of these southern states that when their state constitutions protected the right to own property or chattel, that right included holding slaves. As disgusting as that is, that's how it was. Again, you people, this is not a racist conversation. This is a history conversation. This is how it was.
Well, it's really the same way. We're just unaware of it. But you really, I mean, look at the truth of how we live our lives.
You will understand. My hope is that after this conversation today, you will have a better understanding of when you see the term person or people or citizen of the United States or citizen of the several states, you will have a better understanding of why we are treated the way we are in the court systems. And that's my hope. Okay. Moving on, Dave says that was exactly what the framers of these Southern constitutions had intended. And so that understanding was accurate and factual. After the South lost the rebellion, the United States took the opportunity to free the slaves. This was easier said than done because, again, the constitutions for the Southern states hadn't changed. The only thing that changed was the South had lost the war. Their constitution still did not recognize blacks as people or persons who could attain citizenship. So here's looks like this is a Supreme Court case. Prior to the adoption of the federal constitution, states possessed unlimited and unrestricted sovereignty and retained the same even afterward, except as such was surrendered to the federal government or they were expressly prohibited from exercising by the United States Constitution. So Congress was faced with a difficult dilemma. It wanted to free the blacks to become citizens, but there was nothing in the United States Constitution that gave Congress the power to alter the constitutions of the southern states. This is where it is so eye-opening. The best that Congress could do in an immediate sense was to consider the South under military occupation of the United States, which it was, and recognize that as such the southern states came within the authority of Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17 of the United States Constitution. What this meant was that as long as the southern states were being held as a defeated foe, Congress could pass legislation that would operate within the area known as the southern states. However, in the future, when Congress would it looks like he's got a typo here. However, in the future, when Congress would restore the southern states to their former status as regular states of the Union, all such federal legislation would cease to operate in the southern states. This meant that Congress needed a two-phase solution. The first being the enactment of federal laws to operate within the occupied territories, and the second being a constitutional amendment to secure the principles of those laws even after the laws themselves lost authority in the southern states. Okay? What are you guys' thoughts on that?
I find this stuff so confusing, really.
Doesn't it?
Well, it's partially for me. It's where time and time again they've taken into whether it's good for our behalf or not good for our behalf, the continually amending something that was meant to hold, rights and privileges. I mean, some things should be amended, I suppose, and whatever. But from then till now, the constant amendments are the things to me that go, how does it make sense? Oh, to take a law and then amend it, then why is it even a law to begin with? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yep.
What makes the law powerful if you can just go in and change it?
Exactly. So this is, again, like I said, Dave Champion has a way of authoring things that just make sense. You're like, oh my gosh, I never even in a million years thought of it that way. And because of that, I want to read some more from this document because it's super important, especially as it relates to the 14th Amendment, because you will hear so many arguments out there. Oh, the 14th Amendment applies to me. Or no, it doesn't apply to me. I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. Yes, I'm a 14th Amendment. You can hear all of that.
So I have a quick question, and this is a little bit of a sidebar, but it's based on what you just read. And if anybody knows the answer to this, I'd be interested to know. because a lot of our questions always come up. How come our Constitution doesn't help us? How come this law doesn't help us? That law doesn't help us? Based on what they just said, that we were under military occupation. I heard that it never changed. And it's still under the original military occupation in the areas that were. So I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I think there's some truth to that, right?
Same as it's where the taxes came from. But after the war, they were supposed to be redacted, but they just kept it in place because it was nice, easy money. So
yeah, it's. I really believe that there's still some truth to that, because we wouldn't see these people getting away with blatant violation of our God-given rights like they are if they didn't feel they were justified in doing so.
Right.
I mean, if they knew that they could just be prosecuted and thrown in jail or have all their money taken from them, they wouldn't do it. But they do it. And here's, again, this is what's so eye-opening, and I'm pretty sure it's in this document here, or maybe it's in the other one I'm going to bring up. This is what is so fascinating, because you're going to see when you choose to use certain statutes as your cause of action, that you're choosing to be thrown into a specific box as a citizen of the uppercase United States. Okay, people? Remember that.
Right, right.
Let's keep going. It should be noted at this point that although the slaves were now freed and had been born in a state of the Union, they were still not citizens of that state. In short, they had no citizenship at all. Under long-established doctrines of law, a person who is not a citizen of a place in which he resides is an alien. The legal position of the freed slaves was tenuous. Yes, they were free, but they were aliens in the land of their birth and were thus not entitled to the same rights, privileges, and immunities as citizens. Is that messed up or what?
Oh, yeah.
It's just messed up. But again, under long established doctrines of law, that's the key phrase here. I'm going to highlight that. Okay. Although defeated in battle, the people of the South were not yet ready to capitulate on the slavery issue, and they moved quickly to use the alien status of the blacks against them. Almost immediately after the surrender of the Confederacy, many Southern states started enacting black codes. These laws were intended to operate only upon persons, not citizens. Wait a minute. A phrase right out of Dred Scott versus Sanford. Have we read that case before? Dred Scott versus Sanford. Whoops, I spelled it wrong.
It's quite the opposite today, isn't it? Now the aliens get all the benefits.
Yeah, I'm looking this up real quick because this is I think is something. Okay, here it is. Not that one.
But then they got smart and realized that if they were citizens, they would pay taxes.
Yep. So Dred Scott versus Sanford was a Supreme Court case that was decided in 1856. All right. Hostilities between the North and the South broke out in 1860. So this is 4 years before that. Okay. This is what, let's see. This is what the court said. It said here, a free Negro of the African race whose ancestors were brought to this country and sold as slaves is not a citizen within the meaning of the Constitution of the United States. When the Constitution was adopted, they were not regarded in any of the states as members of the community which constituted the state, and were not numbered among its people or citizens. Consequently, the special rights and immunities guaranteed to citizens do not apply to them. And not being citizens within the meaning of the Constitution, they are not entitled to sue in that character in a court of the United States, and the circuit court has not jurisdiction in such a suit. Remember, I
believe that actually applied to the Native Americans as well.
It did. Just remember that, okay? Because you're going to see as we move on, even though that case, Dred Scott versus Sanford, was overturned and overruled, and even though all men and women, no matter their color or background, are citizens of the United States, citizens of their respective states, you're going to see that they still use that as their crutch. Okay, let's go back to this document here. Because the southern states were under the exclusive legislative jurisdiction of Congress at this time, Any state or local laws that conflicted with federal law would immediately become void and unenforceable. Congress moved quickly to quash the Black Codes. In rapid succession, Congress passed the Enforcement Act, the Freedmen Bureaus Act, and the Civil Rights Act of 1866. That's important to remember that. Collectively, these acts prevented the enforcement of the Black Codes and simultaneously imbued the freed Black slaves with federally granted privileges that are euphemistically called rights. It is in the Enforcement Act that we first see the phrase citizen of the United States used as a legal term, embracing only the recently freed Black slaves. This term is then used again in both the Freedmen Bureaus Act and the Civil Rights Act of 1866 in the same limited manner. It should be noted at this point that the phrase citizen of the United States had been used for nearly 8 decades before the Civil War, but always to speak of persons within federal territories. This was the first time that Congress had used the phrase to denote a person who had been born within a state of the Union. Congress could only apply the term in this way within federal law at that specific point in history because the South, where the freed blacks primarily lived, was federal territory as long as it was being held by the United States military as a defeated foe. So we talked about that. Phase 1 was to issue federal laws. Phase 2 was a constitutional amendment. So this is their plan. They put into action the drafting of the 14th Amendment. Here are its pertinent parts to this discussion. Section 1. All persons, remember that, born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. All right? Any concerns with that? I mean, when you just read that on the surface, doesn't that just make sense?
I'm reading it differently now with the education from before that.
Isn't it amazing? I never in a million years would have understood this or known this. So, Brett, I cannot thank you enough for posting these documents from Dave Champion. I got to get that guy on. I actually reached out to Dave to have him on the show, and we got to try it again because he can explain these things better than anyone that I know of.
Yeah, he's got a gift of knowledge transfer.
He really does.
Yeah.
Okay? So I just want you guys to think about that here, because here's a couple of things that I find fascinating. And let me just see here. I want to talk about the Civil Rights Act of 1866, but I don't want to go into it on this document because it really makes more sense if we go into it on the other documents. So let me pull that one up here because I was reading this earlier today and I'm like, oh my freaking gosh. So let me pull this document up. Any questions real quick? Anything in the chat that we need to touch on before I move on?
No.
Okay. Let me present this document here. Again, for those of you who are following along on the video, it's here. These documents are all in our chat on the Affidavits 101. Okay.
Telegram.
So this is the 14th Amendment clarified. Oh, good. Thank you. Okay. This is an 11-page document. And again, as a precursor, it says this is intended to read after you read both the citizenship and the Constitution treaties on this site. So those are the two documents I went through. Let's go into here. We've already talked about the history. Okay. Here's the arguments. Okay. This is what I love. Dave puts this in a way that is so fascinating. And guys, I am going to tick a lot of people off. And a lot of people that I consider mentors or people where I started me on this journey. But at the end of the day, I want the truth.
Right.
The truth is what matters to me. At the end of the day, I want to know that if I am fighting a legal battle, I am standing on a ground where I can win and not where I was presupposed to lose even before I stepped foot into that battleground. All right. So real quick, there was a question up on the screen. Brent Gray, what was that question?
It was a
So in other words,
Question.
the 14th Amendment just allowed the feds to use the term persons for their own purposes. Brent, as we move along through here, you're going to see that, yes, that is absolutely what has happened. Okay. All right. So let's go over the arguments that Dave says. Errant position number one, the term citizen of the United States as used in the 14th Amendment means the same thing in the opening verse of the United States Constitution. Well, what did we just discuss? Is that true? No. He says the phrase citizen of the United States as used in the opening of the United States Constitution does not have the same meaning as the term citizen of the United States as used in the 14th Amendment. We've already been through this, right? He said in the Dred Scott decision, Justice Taney makes it crystal clear that the phrase people of the United States and its pre-Civil War synonym citizen of the United States have a meaning that is forever fixed. It is forever fixed because those phrases mean only what the men who wrote them and voted on them meant them to mean. Guys, that is so important.
Yeah.
I can't. This is where I'm like, and this is like, it's like mind blown. When we just, I'll tell you right now, when I am researching statutes, codes, laws, and I go up onto my state's website or whatever state's website, and I read it as it's written, I have the narrow-minded view of understanding it as it's written to my understanding of it today.
Right.
We can't.
That was intended, James.
That is the key. Justice just hit the proverbial name on the head. Or nail. The proverbial nail on the head. Do you see where my mind gets all convoluted when I get excited?
Yeah. The blood is rushed to.
You hit the proverbial nail on the head as it was intended by Congress or by whomever wrote that at the time it was written. So here's something that I find is fascinating. When you're researching your laws, you need to go back to when the law was actually written and passed. Not as it is today. Because things change over time. Meanings change. Definitions have different definitions over time.
Well, this is in the same category, I mean, for me, as, the Chevron case that just got overturned. Because what they did is they took these three-letter agencies and gave them the right to interpret law and change it on their behalf. And it's the same thing here. It's all wordsmithery and witchcraft, if you ask me, to cast spells on you. So you have because we are good-hearted human beings. We want to believe what they're teaching us is there to help us, but it's there to trick us and keep us far from the truth, in my opinion.
I love how you have a gift for leading us right on to the next part. Because that's exactly what Dave Champion says here. In other words, neither you nor I nor the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court can indulge in a revisionist history in order to pretend that the words now mean something new and different than they did the day the author or authors wrote them. Whether we like it or not, those words mean forever only the white citizens of the 13 independent states and all states admitted to the Union thereafter. Yep. Get it? Got it? Originalism. It's exactly what this is. Okay. And there was a couple of other questions here. I'm going to star these and make sure we can get to them later. But
yeah.
So moving on, Dave says that is not a racist statement. That is a historical legal reality. Sometimes a historical legal reality may bruise our modern conscience and sensibilities. But the fact that we may feel bruised and angry does not change what the men who wrote the document meant when they wrote the words. I mean, that's just reality, you guys. It's not like I can walk outside my door and go, God, as long as I've been alive, the sky is blue, but today I want to make it green. I'm just going to go ahead and make it green. Can I make it green? Well, maybe if I put something over my eyes to make the sky look green, but does that mean that the sky is green? No.
There's nothing wrong with being born in the skin you're in, and there's nothing wrong with pointing out our differences. It's just what makes us different human beings under God's world.
Exactly.
And it's so, but these guys, the proverbial they, create all this nonsense to keep us divided and keep us so afraid to say anything that we've got to apologize for it for 20 minutes before we talk about it.
Yep. So here is, again, this is why I would caution all of you. I would caution all of you before using the argument that you are a citizen of the United States as defined in the 14th Amendment. Read this and you make your own decision. Since the term citizen, lowercase c, of the United States as used in the 14th Amendment quite clearly does embrace people of African descent brought here for the purpose of slavery and their posterity, this citizen of the United States must be a new and different term, separate and distinct from that used in the opening stanza of the United States Constitution. And it is. Again, citizen of the United States, uppercase C, as used in the opening of the United States Constitution, is any free white male who was a citizen of any of the original 13 states and any free white male who is a citizen of any state thereafter admitted to the Union. Lowercase citizen of the United States, any person born in any state of the Union who was held in bondage of slavery or involuntary servitude and under the provisions of the Constitution of such state at the time, not a citizen thereof, including their posterity. That's the thing too. So what has this done? In short, the 14th Amendment created another new class of citizen. This type of citizen was not created by the well-settled and long-existing rules and tradition of international law as relating to citizenship, such as is the case for men who gained their state citizenship by birth upon the land. This new class of citizen gained his citizenship by the citizens of the original class of citizenship agreeing to establish a new class of citizenship and gifting that new class of citizenship by the amendment to a certain designated class of persons who, at that time, were without any form of citizenship. Wow, the term citizenship was used a lot there.
Yeah, just thinking that.
That's a lot of citizenship. Okay. Get it, got it. Ask this question here. James, your lawsuit was under 7th Amendment instead of 42, 1983. You're correct. I still made a mistake, and I'm going to touch on that here in a second. Okay. I'm glad you brought this up, though. Get it, got it. Errant position number 2. Sections 1983, 1985, and 1986 of Title 42 of the United States Code prove that the 14th Amendment applies to all Americans. How many times have we heard that? Do you guys know what Section 1983, Title 42, Section 1983 is?
No.
Okay, that's the statute that gives you the right to sue someone for depriving you of your rights under the color of law. Right? But what did we just learn that applies to? Here's the truth. People who make this argument are not only wrong, but none too bright. I was one of them. Okay? I have nothing to hide. I was none too bright. Their pet theory can only pretend validity if 1983, 1985, and 1986 exist in a vacuum, which of course they don't. Sections 1983, 85, and 86 are within Chapter 21, which is succinctly entitled Civil Rights. As the California Supreme Court plainly stated, a civil right is considered a right given and protected by law, and a person's enjoyment thereof is regulated entirely by the law that creates it. Whoa!
So it wasn't a right from God. It was from.
Well, our rights come from God, but the civil rights, the way they classify it, come from them.
Bingo. Justice, a tear is going down my cheek right now. You have graduated to become, the student has become the master.
Very slowly, very slowly.
Does that not blow your mind?
It doesn't blow my mind, actually.
Because it really doesn't when you see how they treat us, right?
Yes.
And this is going to make a lot more sense when you look at every single one of these statutes and codes say person, 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 person. And then they have a definition of a person.
This clarifies to me and makes everything else make more sense now.
Yeah. Brent, let's answer this question. Not trying to pick or start a fight, thank you. But just for the sake of modern thinking, can we also interpret man to mean men and women, not artificial beings such as corporations? I love where your head is because you're absolutely correct. But remember, what does the term mean at the time the Constitution was written?
Right.
Mind you, the founders never even thought of the fact that men and women could be artificial beings such as corporations. That never crossed their mind.
And I don't believe that they had the understanding that women had the same standing as men. I was reading a maxim last night that said a woman's land is not actually her land, it's her husband's land, because the husband is the head of her.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a maxim of law. Like, those are considered unchanging in terms and always accepted. And I, as a woman, I'm reading that and I'm like,
Hell
what?
Hell no.
You know what? I would say one of the best definitions of how the husband and wife or the man or woman relationship can be found in the all-time famous classic cult movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, yeah.
While he may be the head of the household, the woman is the neck.
She turns the neck. She can turn the head any way she wants to.
I love that because it's 100% true.
I quote that all the
They
time.
were married to my guy. That's for sure.
But
Well,
here's
back then, the value of the family and the value of the marriage was a very, very different thing. Our family unit and our marital understanding has been completely diluted and corrupt and perverted. So,
yeah.
The independent woman thing to get women on the tax roll and out of the family and away from their children.
Mm-hmm.
So, not that I would give up, my land either or anything like that. I get it, but it's destroyed. It's a very different meaning now.
So here's what I would say, right? I would say, and Leslie Liberty hits the nail on the head, because biblically speaking, women were created from a man, right? God took a rib from the man and gave it to the woman, which is why, what is it? Women have more ribs than men, or the other way around?
Men have one less than us.
Men have, yeah. So there you go. That rib must have had a lot of meat on it or something, because I don't know how you make a beautiful woman out of one rib. But anyway, I'm not God, thank heavens.
Yeah.
But all I can tell you guys is this, and this is why I love doing this show with Erica and Justice, because we are so like-minded. My wife and I, we are a partnership. It is not a dictatorship. I don't rule over her. She doesn't rule over me. I'm also not an idiot. I know that a happy wife is a happy life. So I do whatever I can to make her happy. I do whatever I can. Now, I'm a man, so I have flaws left and right, sideways, up, down, sideways, backwards. And I screw up all the time.
We, as do all of us, James, man.
As do we all. But you know what? Here we are, 21 years later, still married, still love each other. I think we love each other more now than we did when we got married. I thought we loved each other a lot then. But, when you go through life's ups and downs and the trials that life throws at you with a partner like that, there is nothing that can separate the two of you. And when you work every single day to be the best you can be for your spouse and vice versa, people just today, they take the easy way out way too often.
Oh, yeah.
Get it, got it, you're right. Christ treated men and women equally.
Yep.
And we should do the same.
I had great advice from a guy. I used to, I worked in a gym for many years doing athletic training, and there was one of the most knowledgeable guys came in and he said, "You think a relationship should be 50-50, right?" "Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it should be 50-50. He said, "No, it's 100-100. You give 100% of yourself to them. They give it changed my paradigm on how I thought about it.
Right? Because we think differently when we're speaking to our spouses. It's like, am I giving you 100% of me right now?
Right.
Or am I only giving you 50, 60, 30%?
Because it teaches you to meet them where they only met you.
There you go.
Right? So
there you go.
tit for tat.
Okay. Let's move on. Again, this document is fantastic. You guys can find all of this stuff in our files in the Affidavits 101 group. Honestly, somebody was asking if our website was still up. At this point where we are with all the political turmoil, I think it's just safer not to have a website. I think people are doing things and finding ways to jump down people's throats and make life a living hell, for lack of a better term.
And there's nothing on it really that's needed. So it's not up. And,
Yeah,
that was a basic billboard, if you will,
it was.
and a data file on how to write an affidavit. And there's not much more on there.
Yeah.
There's 10 times more and, instant help in the affidavits 101 chat. Much more.
Yep. And we're going to see again, this has completely changed my entire look from a legal perspective, right? Because you talk about all of these things, and I'm just going to touch on this real quick, and I want to jump back into the document. You talk about, corporations can sue or be sued, but they can only be represented by what? A liar, a shyster. Okay. So we, the people, one of the people of the several states, citizen of whatever state you're in, you can't sue on behalf of a corporation. You have to hire a bar licensed attorney to do that for you. So does that make sense? When you're choosing to do that, when you're choosing to sue certain entities, you have now voluntarily moved yourself from the ultimate jurisdiction, which is the jurisdiction between we the people, the Seventh Amendment references this, into the statutory definitions and into the swamp, as we call it, the place that these liars love to live. I think I've mentioned this. I'm helping a friend of mine who is being harassed, and was just ultimately summary judgment was granted against him from his local municipality because he chose not to pay their fees and get a building permit. So again, who is it that's ultimately coming after him? Is it the municipality? The municipality can do nothing on its own. Someone, a man or a woman, has to make that decision. So guess who's going to be named in our countersuit? Not the municipality. We're going to sue the men and the women that make up that municipality in their official capacities as the mayor, blah, 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 and in their individual capacities as the man and woman, because they should know better than to try and force involuntary servitude and slavery on someone who has no business doing that whatsoever.
Okay, so we're getting an anatomy lesson. So that's just fiction.
Okay.
That's kind of why I gave a face. I don't know if anybody saw the nurse go.
Yeah, I was like, shouldn't the nurse of all people know?
I mean,
Like maybe I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. I've never noticed.
We're just speaking biblically speaking. Thank you, Joe Johnson. Appreciate that.
I had no reason to ever verify that in my life. So
yeah, me neither. Okay, let's move on. So, as all Americans should know, our inalienable or unalienable rights are not given by law, but according to the organic law of the United States, the Declaration of Independence, we are given by God and are not subject to interference by the government. Since Americans claiming the original class of citizenship have unalienable rights, what rights have the 14th Amendment citizens? The answer is as clear as it is unfortunate. Mere civil rights.
I'm sorry. Brent's comment.
I love you, Brent. If you ask my wife, I don't have a spine. Brent, I want to meet you and your wife at some point.
Sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I couldn't help it.
That is hilarious. Oh, goodness. So again, we know as citizens of the several states that we have unalienable rights. But if we are moving under the chapter Title 42, 1983, which is a civil rights, what rights do we have? Civil rights. And those rights were given to us by whom?
The government.
The government. Proponents of this erroneous argument begin at Section 1983. They conveniently forget that Chapter 21 begins with Section 1981. Isn't it odd that the proponents of this erroneous argument happen to skip the first three sections, 1981, 1981A, and 1982 of the Civil Rights chapter? Not really, because if they directed your attention to the beginning sections of the chapter, their argument would immediately collapse.
Mhm.
Well, let's read it. Title 42, United States Code, Section 1981A. All persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property, as is enjoyed by white citizens. Can you guys believe that?
This is why no one's winning their 1983 lawsuits.
Can you believe that?
Yes, my spirit knew it. Like, I can't explain that, but like,
But you knew, like,
when everyone was telling me,
phone.
when everyone was telling me as a nurse that I needed to go that route, the 1983, deprivation of rights under the color of law route, I didn't know the law at the time, but something in me said, that doesn't seem right. I don't know.
When you look at just the law, how it's written, you're like, wow, okay, yeah, this makes sense. If you just read Section 1983, but what about Section 1981?
Taking anything out of context, especially historical context and usages, is our downfall. Really, all of us.
Mm-hmm. So here's what's interesting. Okay, if you pull up Section 1981 today, because this says Section 1981A. If you look up Section 1981A now, it's completely different. Okay? It's been changed. You have to go back to when it was originally passed. You have to look at the original intent. That's what's so important. No, Brent Gray, you do not want to use the 1981 argument. You want to stay as far away from it as possible.
They're all part of the rights granted as a person from the government as a special right. Oh my God.
Dan, you're absolutely right, because I've experienced this firsthand. When you sue in federal court, you are abandoning all of the protections your state constitution gives you. What have we all been told? We have all been told to sue in federal court because your state court will roll right over you. Now, chances are they will. But I'm starting to understand why Doc Graves, and again, I love Doc Graves, but again, he was a bar carrying member a bar card carrying member of the bar. But he teaches in his courses to sue in the state courts. But why were we all told to sue in federal court? Well, because you can get redress there better. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. I am telling you from my personal experience, I've gotten a big fat goose egg going into federal court because they side with these stupid shysters every time. And because of my lack of knowledge and understanding, it's completely different.
Right.
So again, this is what's amazing. When you look at the law as it's written, here's what it actually states now. Okay, and this was revised 1977. So I just read this section right here, right on the screen. All persons within the jurisdiction. I'm going to read it to you as it reads today. If I was to look up this law on the books today, it says all persons within the jurisdiction of the United States shall have the same right in every state and territory to make and enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property, as is enjoyed by white citizens. It's still here. And shall be subject to like punishment, pains, penalties, taxes, licenses, and exactions of every kind, and to no other. That was my mic drop, people, because my mic's actually stuck to a thing here. I can't drop it. Can you believe this?
Missed it.
All this time, we have been advocating for Section 42, Title 42, 1983, Title 42, 1983. But we skip over 1981? Are we dumb? No, we're not dumb. It's people, I mean, we had to laugh at this, right? Because before we started the show, somebody posted a comment that said we're controlled opposition. I was like, wow. If I'm controlled opposition, where's my money? Because no one's paying me for it.
With some really weird laws and codes they put in there.
Exactly.
Piracy? We were like, piracy?
Yeah, but when you read this 14th Amendment clarified document, this really starts to open things up. Let's see, who was it? Was it Brent? No, Mr. Sentinel. You were asking, is this document posted somewhere? Yes, it's on Telegram under the group Affidavits 101. I know Justice will put that up on the screen here if you're watching. So
I just posted in the link, guys. Most of the time when I can catch it, I will take any pertinent documents or really good documents and move them over to a file that I created. That's an Affidavits 101 document. I just put the link in the chat. You can't type in there and chat and all that stuff, but you can go in there and find documents. So
it's pretty simple to find.
I'll move it into there also.
Because, get it, got it. She gets it and she got it. Person in State Administrative Procedures Act is a legal entity, and you're going to see this. So under the 14th Amendment, clearly persons are being distinguished from white citizens. This is because the term person, as used in Section 1981, is the same person as in the 14th Amendment, who is the same person as in the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the Enforcement Act, and the Freedmen's Bureau Act, all of which deal exclusively with one class of person, which is any person born in any state of the Union who was held in bondage of slavery or involuntary servitude, and under the provisions of the constitutions of such state is not a citizen thereof. It is also crystal clear that 1981 gives persons that which white citizens already have. Certainly, Congress didn't write 1981 to give white citizens what they already had before 1981 was ever conceived. Does that make sense to anybody?
Right.
It's mind-blowing. It really is. It is really mind-blowing. So let's look at 1983, right? This is the statute we've all been told that grants us the authority to sue someone who denies us our rights under the color of law. Every person who, under color of any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory, or the District of Columbia, subjects or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within the jurisdiction thereof to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution, blah, 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 blah. You guys, I have filed lawsuits in federal court, and I used this statute, and the liars filed motions to dismiss, and the court granted them because they said that they were not person. The people I was suing was not a person under the title of this statute. But again, when we're reading this, the everyday common layman's use the term of the word person. I'm a person. Erica's a person. Justice is a person. We're all persons.
Mm-hmm.
But in legal context, that's not who this was written for. That's what we have to understand. Yeah, Brent, you got it, dude. Just as the civil rights law didn't grant us new rights we didn't already have.
Yep.
Bingo. See, this is the thing that I think is important to understand. It doesn't matter the color of your skin. We all have unalienable rights that were granted to us by our Creator.
Mm-hmm.
Constitutionally speaking, those rights were only afforded to a certain class of people. Congress has done what they can to rectify the wrongs. Unfortunately, this is where we are. I hope things change. I really do. I see a bright future. Things are going to get really rough.
So is it accurate for us to come as we the people?
I think so. I think it's actually more accurate to sue if you need to sue someone, it's more accurate to sue in a state court as one of the citizens of your state, not of the corporate state, but as one of the several people of the Union State of Utah, in my case.
And to avoid you using any codes or statutes to do so?
You don't need them.
Shouldn't have to, yeah.
I think it harms you to do so, right? Doesn't it take you into a different realm?
We don't need them. We have so many common law causes of action. Abuse of process, fraud upon the court, trespass is a common law cause of action. Trespass upon my rights is a common law.
Maladministration of office.
Maladministration of office. All of these things. And anytime we move under those causes of action, Now we have certain protected guarantees that take us out of these administrative courts, out of these processes that deny us our due process rights, and puts us into an Article 3 constitutional court of law, one that is required to be heard by a jury, one that is required that the facts and the law are decided by said jury, not by some joker in a black robe, or as Dave says here, the criminal in the black robe. Okay? That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm actually helping my friend write up this suit. And I'm going to write this in a way, I'm going to drop a ton of bricks on this freaking stupid judge who signed this motion for summary judgment in the clear absence of all jurisdiction. He had no authority to do so. But guess what? Since he did that, he has no judicial immunity at all. And now we can go after him individually.
Right. He acted outside of the capacity that he was granted power to act within.
He was not granted that authority by we the people.
Did your friend come as one of the people?
No, what I'm saying is they sued him.
Okay.
They sued him.
Okay.
And they moved for summary judgment. Never mind the fact that they didn't even follow the rules as it was written, and the judge ignored that.
Right.
He still granted them summary judgment. So we're gonna drop this like a ton of bricks on their head.
So they're trying to deprive him of his unalienable rights to life, liberty, property, happiness.
Correct.
Without the due process of law.
Correct.
So they're treating him like one of the statutory creations that wasn't granted that, right?
Correct.
So they just need to be corrected. Okay.
Amen. Yep. Brent, you hit the nail on the head. This explains why Alphonse isn't getting anywhere with his lawsuit. As much as I appreciate Alphonse, he was the one that opened my eyes and started me on this journey. We are not on the same path today. I don't have any ill will for Alphonse. You all know how the three of us feel. We don't eat our young. And if I remember correctly, Brent, it may have been you, and I apologize if it wasn't, but I know you were just asking a question and people jumped down your throat. And, I posted something in his group and he's like, you know what? I think I'm done. I think I'm done because it's like, I'm so tired of all of this. And the fact of the matter is that we will never get back to where we want to be until we all stop the infighting and start working together and become united. Mm-hmm. We have to become united.
Yeah.
So
hostility is really it's overflowing in this time in the world, and we need a break from it. So one of the things that this does too is Occam's razor is what keeps popping into my head, because that's really I don't know if you guys know what Occam's razor is, but look it up. It's basically the simplest explanation is the explanation, paraphrasing, but that's the way the law should be. You smack her in the face. Yeah, I smacked her in the face. Well, but my mother was homesick, so I was stressed out, and my dog ate my shoe. So all of this stuff comes into play with the legal jargon instead of just, you shouldn't hit people. That's an assault, period, end of story, right?
Yep.
And they've created it so complicated and hidden and memory hold so many things to keep us all spinning around like whirling dervishes.
Yeah. Yep. This is, again, I want to get through, I'm not going to go through all 11 pages of this document, but I want to get through the next couple of pages because, again, this is eye-opening. And it really starts, it's like that aha moment. I was reading this last night when I was snuggling with my twins. They're 8 years old and they still want mom and dad to come snuggle with them. I love it.
Mine's 16 and she still snuggles with me. So
good. I love the fact that my 17-year-old, my daughter, she still comes and gives me a hug before she leaves or before I leave. I love that she does that. And I love that my kids want that. But anyway, I was reading this last night as I was snuggling with them, and I almost jumped out of the bed and went, "Oh my gosh!" Because it's so eye-opening. Dave moves on to say, put simply, jurisdiction is merely the lawful authority to act. Jurisdiction may arise from geography or subject matter. We already know about this, right? In the case of the 14th Amendment, the jurisdiction is based on subject matter, not geography. That's where we've been getting it wrong. The issue being addressed in Section 1 of the 14th Amendment is plainly citizenship. So where does citizenship come from? Prior to the ratification of the 14th Amendment, citizenship could only be obtained at the state level. All rights, privileges, and immunities obtained under the federal Constitution were based exclusively on one's status as a citizen of a state of the Union. It is still that way today for Americans who are within the original class of citizenship. With the ratification of the 14th Amendment, the citizens of the states of the Union agreed to give Congress a hitherto unpossessed power, the power to grant a form of federal citizenship to those persons who had been born in any state of the Union, who had been held in slavery, and under the Constitution of that state could not become a citizen thereof. The states also agreed to consider this new form of citizen as a citizen of a state if the person were to reside within the state. Okay, so here's my question. Is there anyone that you know that falls under this class that was born in a state where they were held in slavery today?
No,
Mm-mm.
I don't.
So why is this law still on the books?
Well,
The
depends on
same
what
reason,
slavery.
the same reason the Internal Revenue Code collects so many billions of dollars from people every year.
This
Well,
law is
James-
still, yes.
Maybe they are considering us slaves. If you honestly think about it, maybe their terminology of what slavery is has changed a little bit, and we are financial slaves. So who knows?
I like where your head is. In other words, Dave goes on, in other words, 1983 offers its protection to the very same class of person as does 1981. In fact, 1981 provides the underlying legal basis to enforce contracts, to sue, be parties, give evidence, and to the full and equal benefit of all laws and proceedings for the security of persons and property as is enjoyed by white citizens, upon which all sections of Chapter 21 are built. Or phrased another way, every section that comes after 1981 is merely a mechanism to enforce one or more elements of Section 1981. Okay? So now that we have that understanding, let's get to errant position number 3. The 14th Amendment changed the constitutional landscape so that the U.S. Supreme Court's decision in Dred Scott v. Sanford was no longer operative in America. The truth, yes, but not in the way the purveyors of this argument would have you believe, and the distinction is significant. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled that the federal courts had no jurisdiction to even hear the Dred Scott matter because there was no issue cognizable under the federal Constitution. The court ruled that there was no issue cognizable under the federal Constitution because Dred Scott and his family were not citizens of the United States, and as such phrase was used in the Constitution and as it was meant by the men who constructed the Constitution. As previously discussed, no amendment can change what the Founding Fathers meant when they wrote citizen of the United States in the opening of the United States Constitution. Therefore, the amendment cannot overturn the underlying constitutional premise the court used to reach its determination, which was that black folks and their posterity who were brought here for the purpose of slavery could never be citizens in the sense in which that term is used in the main body of the United States Constitution. In other words, the amendment could not revise history. What the amendment did was to add to the Constitution by establishing a second class of citizen over whom the federal courts would have jurisdiction. However, underlying this seemingly favorable course of action was a pervasive and insidious problem in the making, and we've all experienced this.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to the ratification of the amendment, for people in the original class of citizenship, their state courts dealt with virtually every matter that was appropriate to be brought before a court. And the federal courts could only hear matters that dealt exclusively with issues in the U.S. Constitution or federal action in connection with the first 13 amendments. In other words, the line between state and federal authority in the lives of citizens was very defined and crystal clear. Although the 14th Amendment was intended to serve intended to serve a laudable purpose, the unintended consequence was to radically shift the balance of federalism and blur the lines almost beyond distinction.
Mm-hmm. Certainly has.
That's what's blowing my mind. It was intended to be a good thing, the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
Right? It was intended to be like, hey, you guys were brought from another country and you aren't given any rights in your state, so we're going to cover you. We got you.
Yeah. So, and again, that's what we're trying to really understand here, right? Because it said those who were brought here against their will, forced into slavery, were ultimately freed, and their posterity were not considered citizens of the United States as the Constitution was written. So Congress did what they could to address that problem. And that's where the 14th Amendment came from. But my question is okay, so that's and their posterity. Well, doesn't this apply to all Americans? Well, we're going to get to that here in just a second. So
right, that's where it's that tricky, where we're saying amendments, they just have the right to go in and go ahead and change law as written. But under natural law, under God's law, if it's going to change it for the benefit of mankind, yes. If it changes it for the bureaucracies, and no, right? So it's
Yep. So this is fascinating, right? So the 14th Amendment was intended to serve a laudable purpose, but it radically shifted those. So how did this happen? For people in the original class of citizenship, the courts of the United States had almost no jurisdiction in their affairs at all. Opportunity for federal intervention in the lives of the average American was virtually nil. The good old days.
Because all of our private rights are completely reserved. That's right.
Exactly. By contrast, when the 14th Amendment was ratified, the United States government became the preeminent protector of every right of the persons granted citizenship by that amendment. This meant that the federal government could tell the states how they could and could not deal with its citizens. In other words, a state legislature could vote to control this or that within its borders relating to the proper view of life in that state, but the federal government had the right to say, that's fine for your citizens, but we won't permit you to apply that law to our citizens, the 14th Amendment, who may be living in your state. This meant for the first time in United States history, the United States government could haul a state official into federal court for enforcing a law duly passed by the elected officials of that state for which he worked.
Ugh.
While this was a positive tool for protecting the recently freed black slaves from egregious state legislation such as the Black Codes, it flung the door open to federal intervention in the states in a way the founding fathers had never imagined or intended, nor would they have ever permitted. So, do you guys see the paradigm and the problem that the 14th Amendment created? While their intentions were good, the unintended circumstances or the unintended consequences of that has brought us to where we are today. We had on our show a while ago a doctor who stood up to the tyranny that was going on, and he was being prosecuted in a federal court by federal criminal charges. Well, wait a minute. If he's a citizen of the United States, as it was originally worded, he's a citizen of his state. The federal jurisdiction, the feds have no jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Do the attorneys fight that? No.
And it's a crazy concept to totally miss the forest for all the trees. If they can get us to focus on all the tiny little details of the statutes, we don't back out and be like, wait a second, that's not even for us. Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's what I was saying about, Occam's razor. This is basically, it's a straight path to the answer here. And then they put all this other stuff in there that just dilutes it and makes you run circles.
Yeah. And it plays with your head in a way that is like, oh my gosh, I can't understand what's going on.
And it's meant to. And
it's by design.
Yes, absolutely. And Dr. Kirk Moore is his name, and he's doing well. He's still fighting the fight.
Good. So, errant position number 4. The United States Supreme Court has said that the 14th Amendment was intended to protect all Americans. The truth is, this is a statement that requires a little digger deeping to understand. One of the cases frequently cited in support of that contention is Bartemeyer versus Iowa, 1873. The Bartemeyer quote offered for that argument is, by that portion of the 14th Amendment by which no state may make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges and immunities of citizens of the United States, or take life, liberty, or property without due process of law, it has now become the fundamental law of this country that life, liberty, and property, which includes the pursuit of happiness, are sacred rights which the Constitution of the United States guarantees to its humblest citizen against oppressive legislation, whether national or local, so that he cannot be deprived of them without due process of law. Now, on the surface, I agree with that statement. If you just read that, the way that the court dictated it, it makes sense. But this is what I love about Dave. He puts this in a way that we can really make it understand.
Mm-hmm.
He says, this statement hardly supports the point of view it is offered to support. Let's look at the court statement in two parts by breaking the sentence in half. The first part of the statement is, by that portion of the 14th Amendment by which no state may make or enforce any law which shall abridge the rights and privileges and so on and so forth. We can't imagine why anyone would disagree with that statement. It certainly states exactly what the 14th Amendment was intended to provide for the persons to whom it applied.
Mm-hmm.
The second half of the sentence reads, it has now become the fundamental law of this country that life, liberty, and property, which includes the pursuit of happiness, and sacred rights, blah, 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 of the United States Constitution guarantees to its humblest citizen, and that's highlighted and underlined, against oppressive legislation, whether national or local. We've emphasized the critical words within that statement. While the court and others might like the general population to presume that the 14th Amendment embraced everyone, the need for legal accuracy compelled the court to delineate to which citizen it was referring by referring to the 14th Amendment citizens as the nation's humblest citizens. In Dred Scott, the court referred to the recently freed black slaves as the unfortunate race, the subject race as in subjugated, inferior class of beings, the unhappy race, the unhappy black race. Again, that was a court. That's not what I'm saying. That's what the court said. The court classified the recently freed black slaves by saying the Negro race is a separate class of persons and the deepest degradation was fixed upon the whole race. Guys, this is just truth. This is history. This is what it was. In distinction to these less than flattering comments, the court referred to the white race as the dominant race, but more importantly held that only white citizens of the states of the Union could be considered citizens of the United States. It should also be noted that the Bartemeyer decision rendered in 1873, when language was used differently than it is today. When the court used the phrase, its humblest citizen, it is referring to the unfortunate race. Because the 14th Amendment had provided the recently freed black slaves with a form of citizenship, the court could no longer refer to that separate class of persons as it had in the Dred Scott decision, but needed to find a gentler manner of referring to the new class of citizens. Keeping somewhat in line with the outlook of the court in Dred, which was the dominant perspective of the day, the court referred to the new black citizens as America's humblest citizens.
Tricky.
Can you believe that?
Yes.
I can as well. Okay? So, again, this is where we have to know words have meaning and words mean things. There is a difference between people and persons in law. You have to understand that. You have to understand, at the end of the day, we have got to get back to the fundamental things that make us who we are as human beings. And we have got to stop trying to persist and persuade people, the courts, that we are something that we are not.
Right.
Okay. There's a couple of more errant positions in here, which are really good. Errant position number 5, the due process of law commandment in the 14th Amendment is a codification of the one law rule prescribed in Deuteronomy. Unfortunately, there's no historical support for this argument. Errant position number 6, if one does not believe that the 14th Amendment applies to everyone, then such a person is saying that white citizens are left in the same position as was Dred Scott before the adoption of the 14th Amendment. Unfortunately, this ridiculous argument is a pathetic last-ditch effort by those who are desperate to somehow manipulate people into accepting a false proposition. The position is so clearly errant that it deserves no comment. Okay? And number 7, the concurring opinion of Justice Field and Bartemeyer should be considered as spelling out the true meaning of the 14th Amendment. We just went over this. Justice Field was an activist justice. In other words, he cared little for what the law really said or really meant, but gave great weight on how the law might be bent to serve any social agenda he thought laudable. Does that happen today?
No.
We don't have activist justices today.
No.
Right? Okay. Just want to make sure. I just want to make sure of that. Okay. This is an interesting one here. The 14th Amendment. This is errant position number 8. The 14th Amendment prevents the states of the Union from infringing upon various rights held by all Americans. This has been the argument that we've been making, right? Unfortunately, the truth is this argument is flawed on a number of self-evident levels. As has been earlier noted, the 14th Amendment did not vest white citizens with any new rights or any rights at all, and only vested the recently freed slaves with very limited rights. I mean, again, I believe their intentions were good, but the pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. Is it not?
Yep.
The only rights that can be protected by the federal government under the authority of the amendment are those rights given by that amendment. This is just, oh gosh, it just pains me. So anyway, so that's the document. We are coming up on just about 2 hours. But this
and just to be clear too, that last point about the due process, just because it was given to the 14th Amendment citizen doesn't mean that we didn't already have it as a state citizens.
Correct.
All of our state constitutions. Correct. As we people.
Yeah, and again, we have to know, and this is where it's like people get lost in the weeds all the time. So like my friend that I'm helping with this property rights issue, we wanted to talk about, well, this statute doesn't apply and this doesn't apply and blah, 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 blah. And wouldn't you know it, this stupid judge, we never came out and said anything about being sovereign citizen. Well, wouldn't you know it that the stupid judge, oh, well, these people are sovereign citizens and because of this and blah, 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 without any supporting evidence to back that up whatsoever.
Wow.
So what I'm saying is we have all been thrown into a class because we are demanding that our rights be protected. We all been thrown into a class where the court says, oh, well, we don't have to give any consideration to any of your arguments because they've all been proven to be frivolous. All right, well, let's just see how well that works out for you. So got one more question here, and then we're going to wrap this up because I know Erica's got to get back to her baby. Mm-hmm. Brent says, James, do you believe then that government would have done more good if it just said your rights come from God instead of making the 14th Amendment? I don't think you could have said it any better. I really believe so. What I think they could have done in addressing the problem is they could have said that all men and women are created equal in the eyes of God, and they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. And all men includes white men, black men, nation. I mean, if you want to spell it out because people are stupid and can't figure it out, then sure. But as we know today, all men and women are created equal in the eyes of God. I don't care what color skin you have, where you're from, what you believe in, what things you want to practice. That is your right. But you do not have a right to jam it down my throat or Erica's throat or Justice's throat.
Or harm others with it.
Or harm others. Yeah. So with that, I'm going to wrap this one up. Erica, thank you.
Well, I did just want to mention one thing, if you don't mind, real quick.
Yeah. You said you had something you wanted to throw in. Yes, go for it.
I'm kind of working on a big project. I have a good friend who wrote an unbelievable notice that has the capacity of changing everything very soon. And I want to do a video that goes along with it. And I think that it has the potential of being pretty viral in its nature, but we need little kids to participate who are able to read. So if you have, and it's all about the restoration of this nation, and it's all about the hierarchy of things, that the creator and the created. It's beautiful.
What age, little kids?
Whoever can read. So you'll have to be able to read. So the smaller the better, really. It would be even cuter. But I would say anywhere from, I don't know, 5, 6 to 12 or 16 up to 16. So if you have sons or daughters or who love to make videos, who love to act, who love to, who will expressively read, everything's already scripted. We'll just be able to send you something and you can have them videotape it and send it to us so that we can edit it and put it together, because we're trying to encourage a lot of pressure for our elected officials to read it, because we found out they're blocking notices.
Yes, they are.
So we want to make sure that it gets through. And I think this video could help. So sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, grandkids, if you have anybody in your life who might be down with doing something like that, can you send me a direct message and we'll send you the link to the website we're setting up.
So that would direct message her in the Telegram Affidavits 101 chat. You just click on her profile and you'll see a little message bubble and you'll be able to message her, for those of you who are not familiar with it.
You're gonna send me that document, right? Because I want to read this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I just got it today. So
awesome. All right, send it along. So
okay.
All right, you guys, we're gonna wrap this one up. It's been a great show, I hope. I hope you all have learned as much as I have reading through this. We really need to take a step back and understand where we're going and how we're attacking the things we're attacking. So if we continue to do the same things we've always done, we're going to get the same results we've always gotten. And to believe otherwise is technically what the Chinese define as insane. So doing the same thing over and over, but expecting different results, that's insanity. So we're not going to be doing that anymore. We're gonna fight this right
like most of the law groups on Telegram today. Sorry guys.
I know. I love it. So with that, you guys, I'm gonna sign off. I got to take off to get go meet my kids, but Erica's got to get back to her baby, and Justice got to get to her daughter. So with that, you guys, thank you so much. We love you, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Take care, y'all.
Bye, y'all.